And ladies and gentlemen, we move to the final panel of the day. And this panel talks about the underprivileged. This panel talks about the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. क्योंकि ऊपरी ऊपरी बात तो सब कर लेते हैं, but what about the bottom of the pyramid? These people do not have basic access to education. These people do not have basic access to employability. And we'll talk just that. The agenda of the final panel, ladies and gentlemen, is employment and engagement of underprivileged youth. And to have this conversation, I'm joined by Gaurav Arora, who's the Vice President Projects at Salam Bombay, and Nitin Mittal, who is from the SMD Foundation. And my very capable colleague, Vasudha Mukherjee, will lead this conversation. She is the editorial lead at Business World. Vasudha, over to you.
Vasudha, we can't hear you.
Yeah, Vasudha, you may start now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, Abhinav. And I'm so sorry for technical difficulties on my end. That's always an issue with working online, right? First of all, I want to say thank you to our panelists, Gaurav and Nitin. Thank you so much for joining me today. International Youth Day is such an important day because we finally get a chance to talk about some really important things that affect the youth of our country. And, sometimes we forget, because we talk about education, we talk about employability, but we always talk about it from the viewpoint that this is already there and how we can improve upon it. But we don't always, talk about the people who are not necessarily getting the best of our resources or getting any resources. And that's where both of you come in. And maybe you can shed some light on what the current situation is, what the foundations are doing, and that's what we're here to talk about. To start off, I actually want to ask each of you to tell us a little bit about your foundations and what kind of projects you're doing that involve the youth. Gaurav, would you like to start?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Vasudha. Glad to be here on a very important day. And I think, we are finalizing the day today by really talking about, the bottom of the pyramid, right? And that is very, very important. I represent Salam Bombay Foundation, and we have a continuum model that integrates skills, education, and industry-based internships that provides a successful transition to the youth when they enter the labor market. So, I think the point is that when you really talk about underprivileged youth, right, they are very few, and you're talking about, youth from the poor, lower socioeconomic strata of the society. Now, I think what is the challenge? Challenge is that either for the quality of education that they will have, they will end up into low-rung jobs, or they would not complete their education. They will drop out. So either ways, whether they complete education which is not of good quality, or they don't complete education, they are going to end into low-rung jobs. Okay, and this is like a vicious cycle, right? One generation, similar problems. Next generation also similar problems. Of course, there'll be very few who will break the norm, but most of them will be into this whole cycle of it, right? So I think there is a need to break it at two levels. One, ensure the continuity of education for our youth and adolescents. Okay, and while they are continuing their education, make sure that you are able to also provide a lot of skills in addition to education. So I think this combination of skills and education will make it very, very interesting, and also lead to a very sustainable career path when they enter into the job market. So at Salam Bombay Foundation, one, at the secondary education level, we are trying to bring in a lot of vocational education, so integration of that. So I think the whole school is becoming interesting. They look forward to going to school in their 9th and 10th grade, because before or after the school hour, some bit of vocational training is being provided. And secondly, when they complete their skills in education, we are also providing industry-based internships. Okay, so that is making them more job ready. So this combination of skills, education, and exposure to industry with a lot of aspiration, make sure that when they attain the age of 18 and they enter into the job market, they are much more prepared, and they are able to get into some good jobs and good career. Yeah, so that's what Salam Bombay Foundation does.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. And your Salam Bombay has been around for so long, and it's so nice to get that perspective from you. Shanti Devi Mittal Foundation is relatively new, and I think that's also really interesting because you have just recently set this up, Nitin. Obviously, there was some kind of gap that your foundation was looking to fill. So, can you please tell us a little bit about your projects and your foundation? Nitin?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. As rightly pointed by my co-panelist, we also believe that education and skill development is very, very important. That's what we at Shanti Devi Mittal Foundation, we are running a center called SKETS Hope Center, where we are imparting skills and education, both the things. We are providing skills in the field of computers, teaching and tailoring and beautician course. There are so many students who have enrolled and benefited from these courses. So the candidates are helped not only to get the better jobs, but they also become self-employed because most of the people are coming from the lower strata of the society. So we try, so we really don't want them to work as maids or drivers or cleaners. So we try to provide them basic skills, for example, agarbatti dhoop making from flowers disposed of from temples. We provide them beauty parlor classes so that they can start their own beauty saloons, or we provide them teaching and tailoring and stitching courses so that they can start their own boutiques. So these are the small kind of skills that we are imparting to the underprivileged in East Delhi. Apart from that, we also run a Hope Special School, which is for the special children, where we provide occupational therapy, basic education, and other therapies to the special children suffering from autism, etc. So more than 100 students have benefit from this special school as well. Apart from that, various initiatives have been taken by our foundation during this pandemic, especially by our tailoring institute, where both the teachers and students, they have stitched more than 50,000 cloth-based masks, which have been distributed to various localities, various slums, because as you may recall that there was a huge shortage of masks when the first lockdown happened in March 2020. So we have distributed more than 50,000 masks prepared by the students and teachers of our institute. This also provided them the opportunity to earn their living as well by creating masks. So these are a couple of the activities that we do in our foundation. Apart from this general welfare, that we have organized several vaccination camps. We have provided more than 25 oxygen concentrators in this pandemic. Various quarantine medicine boxes have been distributed. So multiple activities are being taken care of by our foundation, apart from the regular ones like running a special school and this educational institution where we impart skills and we provide coaching classes to the school-going children. And this has really benefited the school-going children who are unable to do the online classes because of the lack of infrastructure, etc. So they come up to our classes. Our teachers help them understand the concepts, improve their learning and reading, writing skills.
Thank you so much. Right, so let's get into the crux of the matter. I want to ask you, how is it that you engage youth from different backgrounds to come into your program and join the program? Because obviously people from different backgrounds have different priorities, and those priorities might not necessarily be to learn these new skills or to take time off and actually upskill themselves. So can you tell us about how you do this? How do you approach them? Who do you approach? Tell us about their own experiences too. Maybe we can start with Nitin this time.
Yeah. So this is a big challenge that we face to accommodate youth from different backgrounds, age groups, genders. So we are operating in a slum called Joshi Colony, East Delhi, which is basically a migrant colony for migrants from Bihar, Bengal, and UP. So we counsel every candidate at the time of joining the course and also on regular basis to make them understand the benefits of the course. Our teachers adopt different methodologies like teaching on the board, on computers, practical training, putting examples from live, short videos to each students to make the course useful for them. We also try to create batches to create a cohesive environment, learning atmosphere, so that people from different backgrounds, the youth from different backgrounds, they get engaged and get benefited from these courses.
Yeah. Thank you. Gaurav, same question to you.
Sure. See, Vasudha, in our case, as I mentioned, that we are working with adolescents in the secondary school, right? So the base is, the government schools in Mumbai, for example, the corporation run schools, the BMC schools. So we are working in 5 cities, and the model is, very simple, because mobilization has never been a challenge for us, because we are operating at the school level. In the last 6 years of our operation, we have skill trained around 22,500 youth across 5 cities, urban cities in India. We reach out to the schools, we reach out to the education department, and as Mission Mittal was pointing out, we counsel them, speak to them, tell them the importance of integration of skills in education. While they're at school, why skilling is very, very important. Also, engage with their parents. Because they are, one should not forget that parents are a very important part of decision making, right? So we kind of engage parents in the discussion, and and then I think the more important aspect is kind of basically what traits are more suitable to them, depending upon their interest area. So we have a range of around 14 traits, starting from beauty and wellness to mobile repair, home appliance repair, but also going to high tech courses like robotics. So for example, why do we think that a course like robotic or machine learning is only meant for children from a youth or a adolescent from an Ivy school? The idea is, if you really, I think it's only a matter of providing opportunity. So then, how do you really make sure that their interest and their aptitude, are mapped to a correct course that they want to undertake? Okay, and then we are able to engage them. So, it's a process through which we engage with the school authorities, the education department, the student himself or herself, and their parents, that helps us in bringing them together to be a part of our program.
You've actually mentioned that something really interesting, because you provide so many different programs. Do you are there certain programs that you maybe have more interest in than others, and how is it that how do you see interest in demand coming from students or coming from the, educators, like in your own work? Gaurav, could you just continue on that?
Sure. Thank you, Vasudha. So I think there are two factors, and I think we are living in a very, very dynamic world. Everything is changing. Technology is making everything obsolete. So something which is more relevant, or which was more relevant 3-4 years back, might be completely irrelevant. As a matter of fact, COVID had broken a lot of norms. COVID has posed a lot of challenges, but also brought in a lot of opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're asking what traits are more preferred, so I think what is also important for organizations like Salam Bombay Foundation and everyone who is into the skill development ecosystem or a space, is to keep on continuously understanding the market, for the new opportunities that are coming in. Okay, because ultimately, while it is a question of the interest of a youth or adolescent, youth would say, I love to repair cathode ray tube, but that does not matter, because there are no TVs which have a cathode ray today, right? So I think it is very important that one should really keep a continuous track on how certain jobs are changing, the nature of the job. I think COVID has changed it a lot, as I'm saying, right? The whole role by itself for any job has been redefined, right? So I think so that also puts an onus on organizations like Salam Bombay Foundation to keep, continuously keep on understanding the new normal, how the market dynamics are changing, where are the new kind of jobs coming from, and so on and so forth. And then accordingly making sure that you are able to, and none of that is rocket science. As I mentioned to you, even when we took robotics to children from the government and corporation run school, I think they did wonders. As a matter of fact, they thought COVID was an opportunity, and many of them came up with products that could really prevent the transmission of COVID-19 virus from the surfaces. So IoT based classroom automation. So you can imagine a government school where you enter a school classroom, and you give the instruction on your mobile phone, lights on, fan on, and so on and so forth. So I think none of that is rocket science. I think, but what is definitely more important is to really keep on understanding where the market is going, how the dimensions of the job are changing. And let me say one more thing, for example, during COVID-19 pandemic, before that, we had a lot of physical format of internships, right? Now everything was locked down, so all the retail formats of internships you're not able to do. Okay, so that's where we thought CRM, customer relationship management, telecalling, etc., could be a great opportunity. And that's what, basically we quickly took a leap in that, made sure we were able to mobilize a batch, provide them the skills, and were able to deploy them into kind of stipend-based internships. So I think it's a function of both how you understand the market. Okay, quickly build a curriculum around that, and then make sure that you're able to very quickly. It's very dynamic, and you have to be agile given the dimensions of the market today. So that's what we do at Salam Movement Foundation.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think Nitin also mentioned that, right? You talked about making masks and also helping to, students to learn how to make those masks and then also sell them. So obviously you have to be on top of it, especially if, the end goal is to actually have you're not just like skilling, you're just skilling with the goal of having employability and having that income generation happen at the same time. So you have to be very much aware. Nitin, can you tell us about what have you seen any interest or demand in certain programs more than others? And maybe also tell us about counseling. Do you counsel the students? How do you counsel them? Not students, youth. I always forget.
First of all, the first question, the most demanding program, especially during the pandemic, is regarding the computer training, where we impart the basic computer training, which includes the computer fundamentals, using Microsoft Office, using internet, scanning, printing, presentations, etc. So this is the most sort of course that we have. So we have got a couple of batches going on, and we are planning to add more batches considering the interest and interest shown by the youth. The response from the students is very encouraging and exciting. And as regards the counseling, we do counsel whenever a student comes up. Actually, it's a big challenge. We actually have to go door to door to campaign and make the parents understand that skills development or learning of skills or education would be really beneficial for their child or for the adolescents. So it's really difficult to make them come to the center, but once they enter the center, they understand the benefits. We counsel them, we show them the testimonials, they interact with the other students, how they have benefited, what are the benefits that they can reap out of the courses, how it improves their employability, how it improves their livelihood in general. So these are a couple of the factors which we use to counsel them, and we have seen tremendous response and improvements in the lives. More than 500 students have cleared the skills courses from our center, who have been giving proper certificates during the convocation. And when we interact with those students, the alumni of our center, as I would call it, most of them have been gainfully employed. Either they have got promotions in their existing jobs because they have learned computers, or they're working as clerks, or maybe at the billing counter of a grocery store, or they are running their own boutiques, or they are providing these beauty parlor services at homes using various apps like Urban Clap. So most of them have been gainfully employed, more than 90% of the students. So that has been really very, very satisfying for us.
That's really great to hear. And it's also interesting because, there's so many skills that we just completely take for granted that I wouldn't have even thought about as something that needed to be taught separately. And that being said, I actually wanted to also ask you, you ever come across a situation, because you are working with adolescents and, they have their own interests, they have their own things they want to pursue, and, pop media always keeps telling us all these exciting new careers or from zero to hero kinds of stories. Do you ever have issues where people maybe have aspirations or maybe want jobs that are not necessarily in line with their aptitude? And how do you balance that? How do you balance someone's aspiration and aptitude with the job and education that is available?
Yes, we certainly need to find a balance between the aspirations and the educational opportunities. Now, with I think Honorable Prime Minister vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a lot of skill opportunities are available across the country. A lot of skill centers have been set up by the Delhi government as well. So there are a lot of opportunities which are actually combined with the education. They provide a good platform to balance the aspirations and education. So we are also providing a number of skills to the youth so that they can be gainfully employed, or it can balance the aspirations or the aptitude. Our general focus is to make them self-employed, not really make them employable at a certain stage, because we are dealing with the lower cadre of the society who are generally it's very difficult for them to make the ends meet. So we try to make them self-employed by providing the skill sets.
Thank you, Nitin. Gaurav, I would like to ask you the same question. Have you ever had difficulty, or like how do you balance aspirations? What's up with the job opportunities and education opportunities that are available?
Right. So I think we need to realize that there are certain kind of jobs which are less aspirational, and then one would always have a challenge. So I think honestly, if you look at a country like India, I think the problem also comes with the dignity part of it, right? Because a job like plumber is never dignified, or a job like electrician is something basically that there is no kind of dignity around those jobs. So I think while we might try to address this problem, there also need to be a lot of initiatives around building. So I might be an MBA, in a multinational company, and basically at a leadership role. But somewhere we need to realize that a plumber who comes to my house, also is doing a right kind of job, and that job is also dignified enough. When we go to the Western world, we see less of this as a challenge, because every job is equally dignified, and the salary structure or incentives that come for that jobs are also very respectable. So I think a lot of efforts are required, one, to really make all jobs kind of dignified in our country, so there is some level of dignity attached to it. Now, as far as aspirations are concerned, one thing is very clear, that today's youth and adolescent is very demanding, right? They want jobs which are IT based. They want jobs which are have some kind of challenge. So I think we balance that out by kind of looking at opportunities where there is some level of challenge in what they are doing, and they are not really run of the mill kind of jobs. But definitely, as I said, there is a challenge, and to certain extent organizations like ours can address it, but I think it has to be also addressed by a lot of initiatives by the private sector, government, NGOs, parents, etc., where they start looking at all jobs in a dignified.
Thank you, Gaurav. That's actually an excellent point to make. There is the dignity factor is so big, because every job is important and every job requires skill. I mean, both of you are working in that. You're both providing that skill. And if someone is working hard and then they're not getting the proper respect, that's definitely not okay. But actually, Nitin, would you also like to comment on that? And we're talking about jobs and their reputation and dignity related jobs. Like, do you have any comment you would like to make on it?
Yes, certainly. I think we need to emphasize that now, to make the India self-reliant, we need to focus on becoming self-reliant. People should be encouraged to become entrepreneurs, whether that's a small, even if it's a small shop or a big multinational. So the initiatives by the government, especially like Startup India, etc., they have been, since I'm into this practice of chartered accountancy, I think that is considered as a boon. So a lot of startups have come in. People have become self-reliant. So my intent, or my recommendation, or my advice to everyone is to try to become an entrepreneur. Try to bring in their energies to create an organization, to give employment, rather than just becoming a clerk, or just going to a BPO, doing a particular task over a period. So they should be really happy in what they want to create a synergy around it, and create a multinational organizations from India. I think now we have got all the resources. We have got the highest number of youth available in India. I think, as per the study recently done, out of the total youth across the globe of 1.8 billion, I think 30% are from India. So this is a huge opportunity for Indians, for us to create organizations, to be self-reliant, to create multinational companies, to manufacture anything. And we have shown this in pandemic, that how can we be self-reliant.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of self-reliance, I want to backtrack a little bit, because we were talking about skilling and education. And I think Gaurav and I spoke about this before, and we talked about how education and skilling is always talked about as two different notions, and really it shouldn't be seen that way. So how do we approach this? How do we do education and skilling and not see it as two different skill sets, but as one big movement, or one big resource that we can provide to our students? Gaurav?
Sure. Sure. So I think, shall I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. See, I think if we look at the policy side in India, you have the agenda of education being driven by Ministry of Education, okay, and then you have another Ministry for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, right? If you look at the whole education system, which is focusing only on qualification, okay, and we are all aware that the education system is a factory that is creating qualified youth who are not employable, and that is the reason, I don't want to throw the stats, but all of us are aware about unemployed and huge number of unemployed MBAs, huge number of unemployed BTechs, huge number of unemployed BComs, BAs, and so on and so forth. Then the bottom line is that what is the education meant for? If it is not able to provide me a job, so why should I really invest so many years of my life into education, right? And we also hear that for a job of peon in Uttar Pradesh, you had thousands of PhDs and basically BTechs and MBAs applying for those kind of jobs. Okay, so then the fundamental question is that what is the use of that education? And then on the other side, basically we have a skill development ecosystem which is primarily focusing on a dropout youth. Okay, so a youth who has not completed his or her education. Okay, this skilling ecosystem is providing a short-term skill that transitions him or her into a job. Okay, but do remember, it's only a job but not a career. I can give you an example. I am a 8th fail mason, okay, who can do masonry very well. Okay, I am a mason for 2 years now, and I want to now obviously, want to become a supervisor. So I approach my employer and say, I want to see a natural progression and I want to move the career path. And my supervisor says, boss, you are a very good mason, but you're not 12th pass. Okay, and hence I can't make you a supervisor. Okay, so then I think there is a problem because in our country we look education and skill differently, and I think when you're looking at a sustainable employment opportunity or a career path for a youth, you have to think of that as a combination, right? So at the education level, you have to look at imparting skills, and it is the combination that will provide. And you don't have to really wait for a youth to drop out from education, right? You have to keep on doing it at a much younger age, and somewhere the new education policy brings forth that particular approach, where they are saying that somewhere we need to integrate the two, not look at them differently. I say it so many times, on one side we have an education system which is trying to prevent the dropout from education, and on other side we have a skilling system which in a way is celebrating a dropout, because National Skill Development Mission said that they want to train 500 million adult youth by 2022. Okay, so how else will you train 500 million youth unless and until they have not dropped out from education? Okay, so on one side, there are two parts of government. One is saying, oh, we should prevent dropout from happening. Another one is saying, oh, you are a dropout, please welcome, you are a customer. We will skill train you and will give you a job. So I think that to me is a very unsustainable approach. And I think at the country level, it's high time that we think about a holistic system that really combines the two and put it together.
Thank you, Gaurav. Actually, I think you made a very interesting point there where you said that the skill system is preparing you for a job, but not necessarily a career. And that's a big issue with that. And also, we are trying to bring skills into education, but are we trying to put education into the skill section? That's something that needs to be done. And Nitin, I'm so sorry for cutting you off earlier, but yeah, same question to you. How do you feel about like education and skilling being talked about as two separate things?
Absolutely. I think in India, education is more related to academics, getting a qualification, passing a school, or getting a degree course, and skills is related to special training or ability to perform a task. So we understand this differential, and we try to create a cohesive environment in our foundation where we are imparting education and providing a skills training too. So we are providing coaching classes to school-going students to cope up with education. And we are also providing the skills to the students and to the youth so that they can be gainfully employed, whether that's computer, that's stitching. And most of the students, most of the girls and boys who are learning these skills are actually school-going children or college-going children who understand that going forward to be gainfully employed or to earn their livelihood, they need to have these skills. So we do need to create a cohesive environment so that they have got an education, they are literate so that they can do their banking, they can interact with people, they can do online selling, but they also need skills. For example, as I mentioned that we are starting a center to so that people can create their own creams, cosmetics, agarbattis, dhoops from these natural ingredients. So they can set up their own small units at home and start selling on online portals like Amazon, etc. So of course, there need to be a cohesive environment where education is also important, but the skills is also important. I think in the new education policy, one very good introduction that has come up is regarding the coding. That the coding has been made mandatory from class, I think, fourth onwards, so that we have got more IT engineers starting from the budding age. People understand what that is, because otherwise, once you pass the college, then you pursue some computer course or you become a software engineer, etc. So now I think government is realizing this. Number of skills have been designed and various skill centers have been set up so that youth and adolescents and everyone can learn the skills while they are studying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that we kind of touched upon is essentially like, you can't just stop at skilling either, because even though the person you're putting out there is skilled, the traditional system will still require you to have a pass certificate or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. Like there's certain positions which you can't get if you don't have that degree.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's always going to be a thing. And you can't just like give a skill and just be like, okay, well, you're ready now, and just leave them to be there, because then they'll just have to keep coming back, and it's a cycle that you can't break, right? So yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, you were nodding your head. Is there anything you want to say, Gaurav?
No, I'm agreeing with
Yeah.
your point of view.
Okay. Yeah, please do, because otherwise we'll. Yeah, I also want to ask, like, this pandemic has been such a completely turned our heads like upside down. We've gone 180 degrees. But how is it, like, I know it has impacted in the way like of what courses you decided to teach them, but has it impacted you in any other ways? Like, has it made your jobs a little bit more difficult to reach out to people, or did it make it easier? Did it make it like, oh, now people suddenly realize that there is the labor, like going out and working is not possible, so they were coming to you more? Like, what changes did you see with this pandemic with your programs? Nitin, you can start if you like. Yes, please.
Okay. So pandemic has impacted us badly like everyone else due to lockdown and other restrictions. Our skills center was non-operational for a couple of months in last year and a half. But we are providing refresher classes to cope up with the skills, with the education. But there was a silver lining to it. Our teaching center was operational throughout. We took special permissions from the local police stations where our teachers and young girls were issued passes to prepare reusable cloth masks for the underprivileged. So this gave them some opportunity to earn as well as work, learn how to prepare masks and earn their living. So more than 50,000 masks were prepared by the young girls in our institution with the help of the teachers, which were distributed absolutely free of cost to the underprivileged in various fruit markets, weekly markets, etc., or to the in the various slums. There were door-to-door campaigns that were organized. We also focused on the various other COVID relief measures since the classes were not going on. So we distributed quarantine medicines. We organized oxygen concentrators in our NGO, so that because there was a huge shortage of oxygen in the second wave in the month of April and May, especially in Delhi. So we were working on those aspects. We organized vaccination camps, awareness camps were organized. So we were actually working on these items more during this pandemic, because the skills and coaching classes were more or less non-operational for a couple of months because there was a lockdown, then there were other restrictions from the government. Yeah.
Gaurav, any major changes you saw with the pandemic?
Right, opportunity. Okay, I would say, for we sense, so of course, there are some very bad sides of pandemic, and we all of us have been affected. Okay, but one has to really kind of, the bad time is a bad time, but I think one has to really also think of the opportunities that are coming of COVID-19 pandemic. I don't think we could have imagined a slum child from fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade, sitting in a 8 by 8 square feet room, kind of, basically trying to access a class, logging into the Zoom or Teams or, Google Meet and trying to attend a live session, being able to navigate to a website, an e-learning portal, and, being able to do a lot of interesting things, right? So I think I would say that, if you look at pandemic from an opportunity side and not from a challenge side, a whole new lot of opportunities have been created because the penetration of edtech. I would have taken and I speak to a lot of edtech, the education technology expert, and they definitely feel that if pandemic did not happen, it would have taken 5 more years for them to penetrate at the same level, what they are at today. Okay, so I think yeah, if there is a potential for edtech to penetrate because of COVID-19 pandemic, and of course, you have to provide, you have to enable that, you have to access that. Obviously, there are a lot of questions. Almost 40-50% of underprivileged youth do not have access to mobile phone. Okay, so how do you do that? Okay, but I think the first question is, for those who have an access, do you have a really, do you have a model to cater to? So I would say Salam Bombay Foundation made a very early leap into that, and right from April last year, most of our programs are online. Okay, so from their own homes during lockdown, we were able to provide them. For example, you're talking about a beauty and wellness course. Okay, so we were able to ship at their home a kit, a practice kit. Okay, and we were able to teach them how to download Zoom, Meet, or Team on their parent mobile phone. Okay, and then they connected, from their homes, and also topic today. For a lot of period, they were homebound. It affects their mental health. And imagine for 1 hour, they're able to connect through their parents' mobile phone, do a live session on beauty and wellness or mobile repair and home appliance repair. So as a matter of fact, I think both from a mental health perspective and also from an opportunity perspective, it was actually a great thing to do. We were able to, as a matter of fact, take a lot of our programs online. For those who did not have an access to mobile phone, we were able to kind of provide access to old mobile phones or refurbished mobile phones. In some cases, there were donors who gave us 500 tablets. Okay, so we have a rotation model. So every adolescent gets a tablet for 3 or 4 months. Okay, finishes the training, and then tablet moves from one beneficiary to another beneficiary, right? So there is a multiplier effect. So if you consider a 3-year life cycle of a tablet, one tablet is essentially helping almost 14 to 16 beneficiaries during the lifetime. Okay, so I think there are ways and means to do it, and I definitely feel that the COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity has ensured that technology has penetrated at a much higher level, and when technology has penetrated at a much higher level, it has really brought a lot of opportunities, right? So it is not just about teaching someone Microsoft Word or a PowerPoint or an Excel. Today, when a youth is able to comfortably do it, means when they get into any kind of job, they will not be afraid of technology. They are so comfortable, about any kind of technology. And today, whatsoever we say, every job will have a technology component. So I would say COVID-19 also had an opportunity part to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gaurav. And I'm seeing that we're kind of reaching the end of the panel. And in the interest of time, I would like to ask my last question and closing remarks together, because I think this is also something we need to talk about. I just want to ask, whenever we talk about youth, we always talk about employability and education. So, but that's not all there is to youth, right? I mean, so is there any conversation that we are not having that we should be having about youth and, young people and those entering the workforce, other than education and employability? And also, like, how can we, the people who are watching, how can we help and support your foundations? What can we do, and how can we contribute? And if you could just keep your answers a little short in the interest of time. I'll start with Gaurav, because you've been in Salam Bombay has been around for a lot longer, and obviously you've been in this industry for a lot longer. So could you please answer this question first? We can't.
Right. So I already spoke about. Yeah, is it audible? Yeah. So
Yes.
I think I spoke about it already, but I'll say in a nutshell, 3 things you have to do. One, combine skills and education together. We should only have one ministry called Education, Skills and Entrepreneurship Ministry. We should not create multiple systems that really create a lot of problems, right? So that's one. Second, create dignity. Unless and until you create dignity, no one will want to become a plumber, no one will want to become an electrician, no one will want to become a street sweeper or a peon. So you have to create dignity for them. And within, I think this new normal is not going to go away. Okay, so there are learnings. I don't think we'll go back to that old-fashioned word. So the new word will be a combination of the old-fashioned word and the word that was a pandemic. Okay, so I think we have to really think of another new normal that will happen after this normal, and accordingly prepare ourselves for that. So yeah, those are the 3 points I would say.
And what can we do? What can the viewers here do to help support your foundation and your work?
So of course, we as a foundation, we would want a lot of corporates to come forward and basically align with this idea and kind of create opportunities. We want supporters like Business World, because they can really talk about this idea. The magazine and the online platforms can really talk about the idea, make a lot more people sensitive about it. Okay, so then we can collectively try and deal with these important issues.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gaurav, so much. Nitin, same question to you. Employability and education seem to be the major concern when speaking about youth. What is a conversation that we are not having? And what can we viewers right now do to help your foundation and your initiatives?
So I think skills is the answer to improve employability. It adds the much-needed weight to your education to be gainfully employed. For example, if someone has done a graduation in commerce, so then he can do skills training in Tally, GST, etc. in accounting to become an accountant. So there are various diploma courses available nowadays in journalism, architecture, software, designing, engineering, hardware, etc., which provides relevant skill set to be better employed. So I think skills is the answer to improve the employability and to provide a bridge between the education and employability. Imparting skills education is very, very important. And as regards the help, I would request your viewers and the public at large to come forward to support the causes which our foundation is doing by sponsoring education, skills, etc. for the youth. Come forward as volunteers to create awareness, help them teach, etc. The more details about our foundation are available on our Facebook page, Sketch Soap Center, and website shantidevimittalfoundation.com.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nitin, and thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for coming here and speaking to us today about your initiatives and what you're doing to help the youth of this country and have a brighter future and contribute to the nation as a whole. Abhinav?
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Nitin, for joining us. This was the last panel, ladies and gentlemen. And Vasudha, what is very demotivating to know that in the last 2 years of the pandemic, more than 80% of the rural kids did not have any access to online education. And we talk about producing the next generation of Elon Musk. It's a pity and it's a very bad situation. So yeah, Nitin and Gaurav summed it rightly. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us in this last panel.